I moved to a quiet coastal town 3 weeks ago. I thought the change would help me recharge after my breakup. I rented a small house by the beach. The sound of the waves was supposed to inspire me. Instead, I just felt lonely. One rainy afternoon, I heard knocking at my door. It was rhythmic and strange. I opened it and saw a woman standing there. Her eyes looked empty, like she wasn't really there. She said she was lost. The air went cold as she spoke. Before I could ask her name, she vanished into the mist. I thought I was just tired. After a few days, I noticed strange things happening in the house. Cold drafts hit me out of nowhere. Sometimes the lights flickered, like they had a mind of their own. I tried to brush it off, but it made me uneasy. A couple of times I thought I saw her face in the bathroom mirror when I brushed my teeth. One moment I felt alone, then it was like something was right behind me. I talked to the locals about the woman next door. They hesitated before sharing stories. Just 3 weeks before I moved in, she had died. Each story was stranger than the last. Her life had been full of sadness. I felt an odd connection to her, like I was stepping into something dark and forbidden. They whispered that she wandered the cliffs, lost in thought. Was this woman I saw part of her story? I tried to ignore my fears, but they wouldn't let go. Each evening the knocking returned. It was always the same rhythm. I opened the door expecting to see her again, but nothing was there, just mist and shadows. It felt like something was watching me. I didn't know if it was all in my head or something worse. One night, a storm raged outside. I was in bed when the knocking grew louder, more urgent. My heart raced as I swung my feet to the floor. I opened my bedroom door and stepped into the dark hallway. I felt heavy air around me. It was suffocating. I crept toward the front door, trembling as I reached for the knob. When I opened it, she was there again. Now her eyes looked directly into mine, like she was trying to pierce my soul. She asked, "Do you remember me?" I froze. I couldn't breathe. It felt like a dream. Then she said, "You have to listen to me." Just as I was about to respond, she turned and walked away into the fog. I stood there, heart racing, unsure if I should follow. The mist closed in around me, swallowing her silhouette. I couldn't shake the feeling that I should have followed her. I didn't know what she wanted, but my life felt tied to hers. What was happening in this place? Why did I come here? The air felt thicker now, like the walls were closing in. I was scared. I didn't know what to do next. The next morning, I woke up feeling exhausted. I thought maybe some fresh air would clear my head. I grabbed my coat and decided to take a walk along the beach. The waves seemed more violent today, crashing against the rocks like they were trying to tell me something.
As I walked, I tried to replay the woman's words in my mind. "Do you remember me?" I didn't even know her name. I felt a mix of frustration and fear. I wondered if she wanted help, or if she was just lost in another way. I reached the cliffs where the locals said she used to wander. The wind whipped around me, and I shivered. That's when I saw a small piece of fabric fluttering near a rock. It was white, tattered, and seemed out of place. I picked it up and realized it was part of a dress. My heart raced as I remembered the way she had looked, dressed in white, with a ghostly appearance. I felt a chill run down my spine. I looked around, half expecting her to appear, but I was alone. Just me, the crashing waves, and the cliffs that seemed to loom over me like silent sentinels. There had to be more to her story, more to the fabric in my hand. I took a deep breath and tucked it in my pocket, deciding to go back home. When I returned to my house, a sudden unease washed over me. The air felt thick again, and shadows danced in the corners of my vision. I tried to shake it off, but as I closed the door, I noticed something. The living room was different. The light flickered wildly before settling into an eerie glow. That's when I saw it, on the coffee table, a framed photo. I didn't remember bringing it in. It was a picture of a woman, her face half obscured by shadows. It looked like her. My heart sank as I knelt closer. The name written on the bottom read Clara. I felt a sudden rush of dread. Clara, was this her name? Why was this photo in my house? My fingers trembled as I reached for it, the temperature in the room dropping sharply. I needed answers, but the fear settled deep in my gut. I could feel the weight of Clara's presence, like she was pushing against me. Then I heard it, a faint knocking, the same rhythmic sound that haunted me every night. I shot back, nearly dropping the photo. This time it felt more insistent, almost desperate. With shaky hands, I went to the front door, knowing I had to confront whatever was on the other side. Just as I turned the knob, everything went dark. It was as if the world had vanished around me. Panic surged in my chest. The knocking continued, but now it felt closer, more demanding. I had to open the door before I was swallowed by the dark. Each beat of the knocking echoed in the silence. "What do you want?" I called out, my voice trembling. But no answer came, just that relentless knocking, as if Clara was begging me to step into the unknown. I steadied my breath, my hand gripping the doorknob so tight my knuckles turned white. The knocking stopped, a heavy silence filling the air. "Clara," I called out, my voice barely above a whisper. No reply came, just the uncomfortable emptiness that stretched around me. The lights flickered again, and I felt a wave of cold wash over me. I needed to know what was happening. I opened the door, not knowing what I'd find.
As I stepped outside, the world remained cloaked in darkness, shadows swirling like an unseen storm. All around me, the air felt charged, thick with a tension I couldn't understand. I hesitated, glancing down the empty street that stretched before me. It was quiet, too quiet. I could barely see, but I could sense something was off. The hair on my arms stood on end. "Clara? Is that you?" I called again. My voice echoed back, empty and lonely. Suddenly, out of the corner of my eye, something shifted. I turned my head quickly, and there she was, standing at the edge of the street, bathed in pale moonlight. Her figure was almost transparent, as if she was made of mist. My heart raced, a strange mix of fear and fascination washing over me. "Do you remember me?" she asked, her voice like wind rustling through leaves. I felt my breath hitch as memories of our previous encounter flooded back. I remember her sadness, her longing. I found this," I said, pulling the tattered fabric from my pocket. I could hardly keep my hand steady. "Is this yours?" She glanced at the piece of fabric, her expression undisturbed. "It was never just a dress," she said. "It carries my story. You have to understand." "Your story?" My mind raced. "What happened to you?" The wind howled around us, and she looked far away, her gaze lost in something I could not see. "I am trapped. You must help me." There was a desperation in her words that made my heart sink. "Help you how?" I asked, dread creeping back in. Was I meant to uncover a secret that was better left buried? "Find the truth. In order to set me free, you must find them." "Find who?" I pressed, feeling the weight of her question pressing down on me like a stone. "The ones who hurt me," she said quietly, taking a step closer. "They can't know you're looking for them. You must do it alone." My mind reeled. Who harmed Clara? Did they have something to do with her death, or were they connected to the fabric I held in my hand? Where do I even start? "Follow the fabric," she whispered, her voice fading with each word. "It will lead you." Suddenly, the shadows deepened, swallowing the light. I felt a rush of cold, and when it cleared, she was gone. I stood there alone, my heart pounding. Questions swirled in my head. What did she mean by "find the truth"? I was left in darkness with nothing but the chilling realization that I was now part of a story far more complicated than I had ever imagined. I clutched the fabric tightly, knowing I had no choice but to dig deeper. It was the only way to uncover Clara's past, and perhaps my own fate. Then, a noise, a distant rumble, a car, or something worse. I turned to face the sound, the night growing heavier around me. Chapter 2. The noise grew louder, rumbling like thunder overhead. I squinted into the darkness, trying to spot the source of the sound. My heart raced as I considered the possibility that someone might be coming for me.
I felt exposed and vulnerable, standing out there with only the fabric in my hand. Taking a step back toward my door, I caught sight of something on the ground. It glinted faintly in the moonlight. I leaned down to get a better look, my heart pounding even harder. It was a small silver locket, half buried in the dirt. Ignoring the low rumble in the distance, I picked it up, feeling its cool weight in my palm. As I opened it, the two tiny photos inside sent chills down my spine. One was of a young girl, Clara, judging by the resemblance. The other was an unfamiliar man, his face serious and unyielding. A rush of questions flooded my mind. Was this man connected to Clara's story? Was he one of the ones who hurt her? Suddenly, the rumbling noise turned into a blaring horn, snapping me from my thoughts. I glanced back at the street, my pulse racing. Bright headlights illuminated the darkness as a car barreled down the road. It screeched to a halt in front of me, and the driver's door flung open. A man jumped out. He was tall and broad-shouldered, his face hidden under the brim of a baseball cap. Darkness shrouded his features, but I felt an instinctive wave of unease wash over me. My heart raced again, the fabric still clutched tightly in my other hand. "What are you doing out here?" he shouted, his voice sharp and demanding. "It's not safe." Who are you?" I stammered, my instinct to flee battling with my need for answers. He took a step toward me, his eyes narrowing. "That's not important. What's important is that you shouldn't be alone. Clara's story? It's dangerous." My breath caught in my throat. He knew Clara. "You know her?" I stepped back, clutching the locket, feeling its weight like a warning. His expression softened for the briefest moment before hardening again. "Yes, and you've gotten mixed up in something that's bigger than you realize. You need to listen to me if you want to stay safe." "Safe from what?" I asked, confusion mixing with fear. "From those who hurt her. They're not done yet. They'll come for you." I was about to question him more when a sound echoed through the night, a sharp bark of laughter, echoing from the direction of the locket I had found. The man's expression shifted to grim determination. "We have to go. Now." I hesitated, feeling trapped between my curiosity about Clara's past and the urgency of escaping this strange man. He motioned for me to get back in the car. The laughter echoed again, a dreadful reminder that I wasn't alone in this darkness. I didn't know what to do, but deep down, I felt I had no choice. A shiver ran through me as I climbed into the passenger seat, realizing I was now part of a game that had deadly stakes. Then everything went dark. The headlights flickered, the engine sputtered, and the world outside blurred into shadows. Chapter 3. I jolted in my seat, the sudden loss of light and noise disorienting me. Panic clawed in my insides. What just happened? I glanced over at the man.
He was staring straight ahead, his jaw clenched. "Stay calm," he said, his voice tense. "The battery must be dead. We don't have much time." "What do you mean?" I shot back, fear creeping into my tone. "What's out there?" He didn't answer, his eyes darting to the rearview mirror. I followed his gaze. Darkness hovered like a predator, and that horrible laughter echoed closer, sounding like it belonged to a twisted shadow. "Get out," he ordered sharply, cutting through my thoughts. "We need to leave the car." "Leave the car? Are you insane?" My heart raced as I gripped the fabric and locket tighter. The sound of footsteps approached. Daryl, I needed to remember the name. He seemed to be my only chance at safety. "Now," he urged, and without thinking, I opened the door and stepped into the night. The air felt thick, as if it were loaded with electricity. I stumbled back as the man emerged, scanning the darkness around us. "We need to head toward those trees." He pointed towards a thick line of oak trees bordering the road. "Stay close." I nodded, adrenaline pushing me forward despite the uncertainty. As we moved, the laughter burst into a full-blown cackle, echoing through the night air, sending chills down my spine. I wanted to scream, but I forced myself to stay silent. We ducked behind a large oak, the rough bark digging into my back. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. "What now?" I whispered, trying to keep my voice low. Daryl leaned against the tree, his breath hard and hurried. "We wait. They don't know where we are, yet." "What do you mean by they?" I whispered, still grappling with the fear that was clawing at my insides. "You keep saying things like they're hunting me." He glanced back at me, seriousness etched on his face. "Clara's family. They're not finished. They think she left something behind that's worth finding." My mind raced. "The locket. What are they looking for?" He hesitated. "Something connected to the man in the photo, I believe." Just then, the bushes rustled nearby, and I held my breath. The laughter peaked again, ringing with a cruel edge. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were in the eye of a storm. Daryl crouched lower, his focus shifting from me to the direction of the sound. "We need to keep moving." He took a breath and glanced at me, determination in his eyes, and I could feel the gravity of the moment settling around us. "I'm not letting them take you. Not now." That was when I heard it, a distinct thud, followed by a low growl. I froze, ice settling in my veins. Someone was in the woods. Daryl stiffened beside me. "We have to go," urgency coloring his tone. "Now." Panic surged within me. Someone or something would find us if we stayed hidden. My fear collided with a desperate need to survive. I nodded again, and before I could second-guess myself, we bolted into the night, the trees around us swallowing the sound of our footsteps. Then I saw it, a flash of movement ahead.
Chapter 4. The movement was quick, darting between the trees, almost like a shadow. My breath caught in my throat as I squinted toward the source. There was something inhuman about it. I felt a strange pull to turn back, but fear rooted me to the ground. "Clara," a voice called from the darkness, sharp and demanding. I recognized it instantly. It was her brother, Ethan. The laughter had faded, but his voice was chilling. Daryl grabbed my arm, pulling me deeper into the forest. "We can't stop," he said urgently, but I couldn't move. Ethan was getting closer. "Clara, you need to come back," he shouted, desperation lacing his tone. "You don't know what you're doing." I glanced at Daryl, confusion washing over me. "He's looking for me," I said, my voice trembling. "What does he want?" "They think you have something," he replied, still dragging me forward. "It's not just any object. It could get them everything they're after." I looked back into the darkness. "What's so important?" Ethan's voice cut through the night again. "You're in danger. You have to trust me." Daryl shook his head. "He's lying. They won't stop until they have it, and they'll do anything to get it from you." I felt the weight of Daryl's words. The last thing I wanted was to trust anyone, but if my own family was coming for me, my instincts told me I should run. Then I heard another noise, a snap of a branch. The growl came again, louder now. Fear washed over me like a tidal wave. "What was that?" I whispered. "Keep moving," Daryl urged, pushing me forward with urgency. We sprinted through the underbrush, branches tearing at our clothes. The growl echoed behind us, fierce and deep. I could hear the footsteps gaining momentum, and my heart raced. "Where are we going?" I gasped, trying to keep up. "To a safe place," he panted. "Just keep following me." I couldn't shake the feeling of being hunted. Every sound felt alive. In the distance, I spotted an old shack, its silhouette barely visible through the trees. It looked abandoned, but it was better than nothing. "Over there," I shouted, pointing. Daryl nodded, and we dashed for it, the thuds of our pursuers growing nearer. As we approached, I noticed something strange. Shadows flickering inside the shack, like candlelight. "Do you see that?" I whispered, panic rising inside me. "Don't think about it," he replied, urgency replacing caution. "We need to get inside." Just as we reached the door, another thump came from the direction we'd just left. I felt a cold dread settle deep in my stomach. Whatever was behind us was close. I pushed the door open, and we tumbled inside the shack. The heavy smell of mildew hit my nose as I scanned the room. There were old crates, broken furniture, and dust motes swirling in the air. "Close it," Daryl said, slamming the door behind us. I turned and locked the door, my heart racing. The flickering light caught my eye again.
I stepped forward cautiously, hoping it was just a candle illuminating the darkness. But then I froze. A woman stood in the far corner, her face obscured in shadow. She seemed familiar, hauntingly so. I felt my chest tighten as recognition washed over me. "Clara," she whispered, her voice soft yet eerie. "I've been waiting for you." And that's when I knew everything was about to change. Chapter 5. I stood rooted to the spot, my heart pounding in my chest. This couldn't be real. The woman in front of me, with her dark hair and piercing gaze, looked just like my mother, but I knew she was dead. I had buried her 3 weeks ago. "Mom?" I whispered, the word escaping my lips before I could stop myself. She stepped forward, her movements fluid yet haunting. "I'm here, Clara. You need to listen." Her voice seemed to wrap around me, pulling me closer with each word. Daryl was tense beside me, his eyes darting between her and the door. "This isn't good. We need to figure out a way out of here," he said, his voice steady but urgent. Ignoring him, I took a shaky step toward her. "What do you mean? How is this possible?" "Things aren't what they seem. The darkness wants you, and you have something they need." I felt the weight of her words, a mix of fear and disbelief swirling inside me. "What darkness? What do they want?" Before she could answer, a loud thud echoed from outside the shack. It rattled the windows and caused the flickering shadows to dance wildly. Daryl pushed me backward, his focus completely on the door. "We can't stay here. They're coming." My mother's gaze turned steely. "You need to trust me, Clara. You have to open your mind to what's happening." "I don't understand," I shouted, feeling trapped between two worlds, the strange presence of my mother and the reality of my brother hunting me down. "What do I have?" "It's within you," she said, her voice lowering as if sharing a secret. "An ancient power. They want to harness it." Another thud, this one louder, made the shack tremble. I glanced toward the door, and my instinct to flee flared, but my heart was still tangled in confusion. "I can't just take your word for it." Suddenly, the door splintered under a powerful force. My stomach dropped as cracks began to spread through the wooden planks. "Now, Clara," Daryl shouted, clutching my arm and pulling me away from my mother. "We need to go." As fear surged through me, I took one last look at the woman who looked like my mother. "I can help you, Clara. This isn't over," she yelled, but her voice was drowned by the booming noise of the door giving way. That's when I saw it, a shadow, not just outside, but flooding the room. A figure loomed in the doorway, its outline distorted and menacing. My breath hitched as it stepped inside, revealing sharp features and glowing eyes that pierced through the darkness.
My heart raced, and I felt the urge to scream. I turned and bolted toward the back of the shack, with Daryl right behind me. We pushed aside an old shelf and found a narrow window. "Help me get through!" I yelled. Daryl shoved me up and out, and as I scrambled to safety, I risked a glance back. My mother's face was a mixture of determination and sorrow. She reached for me, but the shadowy figure was advancing, and I had to escape. I landed hard on the ground, gasping for breath. The cold air hit my lungs, but as I turned and saw Daryl leap out of the window behind me, I realized this was only the beginning. Suddenly, the shadows seemed to shift, and something deep inside me awakened. I didn't know exactly what it was yet, but I felt its presence. "I don't know what's happening," I gasped, panting from the adrenaline, "but we can't just run." Daryl nodded, his eyes wide with fear and determination. "Then we fight." And as I looked back at the shack, the flickering light slowly dimming behind us, I knew I had a choice to make. Chapter 6. The moon hung high as we sprinted into the woods, branches clawing at our clothes and faces. Daryl led the way, guiding us through the dark maze of trees, but I was still processing what had just happened. My mother, or her illusion, had been right there, calling to me, and now a shadow monster was after us. "Where do we go?" I gasped, my lungs burning as I stumbled over a root. "Just keep moving," Daryl yelled back, his voice strained but urgent. "We have to lose it." I didn't even know what it was. I felt a flicker of fear surge through me, threatening to bring me to a halt, but I pushed harder, desperate to catch up with Daryl. My head was spinning. The shadows, my mother's words, the power I didn't understand. I needed answers. After what felt like an eternity, we broke into a clearing. The moon illuminated a small rocky outcrop where we stopped to catch our breath. I leaned against a boulder, trying to steady my racing heart. "Do you think we lost it?" I asked, my voice shaky. "I hope so," Daryl replied, scanning the tree line. "But we can't stay here long. We need to figure out what our next move is." I nodded, but dread settled in my stomach. "Daryl, what if the darkness really is after me? What if what Mom said? What if it's true?" He put his hands on my shoulders, forcing me to meet his gaze. "We need to be strong. We can't let fear define us. If you really have something they want, we need to understand it." His words stirred a sense of purpose inside me. "But how? How do we do that? I don't even know what it is." Just then, a rustling sound broke through the silence, cutting our conversation short. Daryl and I exchanged worried glances. The shadows were shifting again. "Get behind me," he urged, his eyes narrowing toward the sound. I felt a surge of panic rise in me. What if it's them? We can't think that way. Daryl's grip tightened around a nearby rock, ready to defend.
Before we could react, a figure stepped into the moonlight, stumbling forward. My breath caught in my throat as I recognized him. It was Finn, a guy from school, but he looked disheveled and frightened, his shirt torn and his eyes wide. "Clara! Daryl!" he exclaimed. "I was hoping I'd find you two here." "What are you doing?" I asked, shocked at his sudden appearance. "It's not safe." "I know, but you have to listen to me," he said, gasping for breath. "There are things going on in town, strange occurrences. People are disappearing, and I think it's connected to whatever that thing is." "What do you know?" Daryl pressed, stepping closer. Finn gulped. "I overheard some guys talking about a ritual. They're trying to summon something, and they need someone like you, Clara." I felt the world tilt. They needed me? What do you mean, someone like me? "Your powers. It's not just talk," Finn said, his face pale. "You have something they want, and they'll stop at nothing to get it." That's when it hit me. The shadows weren't just after me. They were after something much bigger. I could sense it, deep inside. Suddenly, the night air grew heavy, and a chill slithered down my spine. I turned to see a growing darkness at the edge of the clearing, shifting and twisting like smoke. We weren't alone, and soon we'd have to face it together. Chapter 7. The darkness pulsed at the edge of the clearing, a sinister presence that made my skin crawl. It felt alive, watching, waiting. My heart raced as I glanced at Daryl and Finn, both of them looking as scared as I felt. "What do we do?" I whispered, my voice barely above a breath. I didn't want to say it too loudly, as if saying it would make the situation real. "We have to confront it," Daryl said, his jaw set with determination. "We can't run, not this time." Finn shook his head. "But we don't even know what it is. We need to—" "Then let's find out," I interrupted, surprising myself with the strength of my own voice. I couldn't let fear control me. If the darkness wanted me, I needed to understand why. With hesitant steps, I moved toward the darkness. It rolled closer, tendrils reaching out like fingers, searching. I could feel its pull, a magnetic force tugging at my very core. It felt familiar, almost like an invitation. "Clara, wait!"
Daryl's voice was urgent but distant as I stepped forward into the black. In that moment, a memory flashed through my mind. My mother standing in the shadows of the house, speaking words that had always lingered there, unrecognized until now. When the darkness calls, you must answer. That was it. My heart raced, not just from fear, but a flicker of something deeper, maybe power. I reached out an arm, feeling the pull intensify. I didn't understand what was happening, but I knew I had to try. It felt like breaking through a veil. A shudder ran through me, and suddenly the darkness flickered, revealing ghostly shapes writhing within. Faces emerged, haunted, tormented.
My heart sank as I recognized one of them. "Mom?" I gasped, my voice trembling. The figure looked more like a shadow than a human now, but I could see her eyes, full of loss, pleading. I felt a jolt of desperation. "What are you doing here?" "Help me," her voice echoed, a distant whisper, but clear enough to cut through the fear. "They need you, Clara. You have the power to set them free." "Who needs me?" I pressed, raising my voice as the darkness thickened around me. I took another step forward, driven by instinct now. "Keep going," Daryl encouraged from behind me, his voice steadying me. "You're strong, Clara. You can handle this." I took a deep breath and focused. "I can help you, but you need to tell me what to do." The shadows swirled violently, as if testing my resolve, but beneath the fear, something inside me stirred. A warmth, an energy waiting to be unleashed. Then it struck me. The ritual Finn had mentioned. It wasn't just them trying to summon something. It was me they wanted to control, to harness. I wasn't just a target. I was a key. Suddenly, the darkness roared to life, pulling back as if in response. I stumbled back as the tendrils retreated, a clear path forming behind them. "Keep back," Finn shouted, panic in his voice. I turned just in time to see him stagger and fall, the darkness seizing the opportunity to charge toward us. We had only seconds to act. "Run!" I screamed. But from that darkness, something emerged, a form shifting rapidly, and I could already feel its icy breath trailing behind me. What had I just unleashed? I had thought I was reaching for answers, but instead I'd revealed a new threat, and as we turned to flee, I realized our fight was only just beginning. Chapter 8. The sprint through the open space felt like time had warped, the darkness chasing us with relentless energy. Adrenaline surged in my veins. A chilling sensation clawed at my back as if it could taste my fear. "Daryl, we need to find somewhere safe," I shouted, desperate for a place to regroup. My thoughts raced. What had I stirred within the darkness? If I was the key they sought, then what did that make me? "The old lighthouse is nearby," Finn yelled back, his voice hoarse. "We can barricade ourselves in there." We veered to the left, lunging into the dense brush. The moonlight created a pathway ahead, illuminating the narrow path leading up to the lighthouse. I could just make out the silhouette of the building against the night sky. My heart raced with both hope and fear. "What if the darkness catches up?" I panted, glancing back. The shadows slithered, their whispers clawing at my mind, taunting me. "We'll figure it out once we get there," Daryl insisted. With each footfall, I could almost feel the darkness amplify behind us, an entity that wanted more than just my life. My breath hitched as I stumbled. I could hear disembodied whispers, words that felt ancient and powerful.
They beckoned, warning me about the choices I'd made, about the network of lives trapped within the darkness. "Clara!" Daryl called, pulling me away from the edge of panic. "Focus!" We rounded a corner, the lighthouse looming tall against the stormy sky. It felt like a forsaken tower at the edge of the world, a remnant of hope. "Here!" Finn pointed to the heavy door, its chipped wood and rusting handle almost too fitting for the circumstances. We slammed the door shut behind us, the sound echoing eerily within the confines of the lighthouse. A wave of cold air enveloped us, and immediately the sensation of being watched returned. I shuddered, feeling tension seep into the very core of my being. "Is it safe?" I whispered, scanning the shadows in the corners. The air felt charged, suffocating. "For now," Daryl replied, his voice barely steady. "But we need to secure ourselves, find something to barricade the door." We began shuffling through the dim interior, strewn with old furniture and forgotten history. The remnants of light from the lanterns cast flickering shadows all around, relics from a time when it once guided sailors home. Now it felt like a tomb. "Clara, look!" Finn exclaimed, standing beside what seemed to be an old harpoon. "This might ward it off if it comes close."
I nodded, my fingers wrapping around the cold metal. But I felt an odd pull towards the staircase spiraling upward, urging me to explore further. "Wait," I said, holding them back before we barricaded ourselves. "There's something up there." "What do you mean?" Darrell asked, his brow furrowed with concern. "Something's calling me," I replied, feeling torn. The shadows seemed to hover closer, almost eager for my decision. Finn and Darrell exchanged glances. "Clara, we have to stick together," Darrell urged. "We can't split up." I felt the weight of his concern. Did I dare follow the call of the unknown? But I had come this far, and part of me knew this was a puzzle I needed to solve. My connection to Clara's mystery ran deeper than I imagined. "Just a quick look," I said, barely giving them time to argue before I took off up the stairs. The wooden steps creaked beneath my weight as I ascended, each footfall echoing through the silence. Reaching the top, I entered a small room, its windows framing the stormy ocean. It felt like the world was at war beyond those panes. In the center stood a lantern, its flame flickering brightly, creating warmth amidst the shrouded gold. Then I saw it, a journal lying open on the table, its pages worn and filled with hastily penned notes. I stepped closer, my breath catching at the sight of Clara's name inscribed neatly across the top of one entry, written in her familiar handwriting. I know they're coming for me, for the truth I carry, but how do I let go of the darkness? How do I escape? My heart raced. This was Clara's voice, a piece of her story I never knew. Just then, the door below groaned as it began to shake. Panic flooded me.
"Clara!" Darrell shouted from downstairs, urgency lacing his voice. "It's here!" I rushed back down the stairs, the echoes of my steps blending with the resounding boom against the door. Just as I reached the bottom, the wood splintered, and a gust of cold air swept through, momentarily dimming the lantern light. I gripped the harpoon tightly, stepping beside Darrell and Finn. "We have to hold it off." A dark figure surged through the door, silhouetted by the flickering light. I could just make out its features, shifting and distorting into a grotesque mask of despair. It wasn't just an entity, it was a manifestation of Clara's pain, and I was the key to understanding it. "Clara!" it rasped, its voice echoing as it searched for me. "You shouldn't have opened the shadows." I took a step forward, adrenaline coursing through me. "I didn't come here to fight," I shouted back. "I'm here to understand." The darkness paused, shifting in confusion. "You think it's a choice?" I raised the harpoon, feeling a surge within me, warmth and command overtaking the fear. "I'll find the truth, with or without you." The shadows coiled violently. They lashed out, but I pressed forward. What would I uncover? My mother's legacy, Clara's fate, and perhaps my own intertwined destinies lay heavy as I summoned strength from within. "Stand back!" Darrell shouted, gripping my arm as the shadows lunged closer. And with that, I opened my mouth to uncover the deeper truth, to unleash whatever it was Clara had left behind as the darkness surged around us. In that moment, I realized I had no choice but to confront what I would find. There would always be unknowns, but I needed to face them, even at the edge of that swirling abyss. In the end, we were all tied to the same fate, drifting between light and shadow. Would I find the answer before it consumed everything? I didn't know, but for now, my resolve strengthened. We would not go quietly into that night.